forever. We must make sure that our SDG goals, building sustainable cities and life on land, must be accomplished.
Even small steps such as campaigning or preserving small forest areas,
Afforestation and reforestation. Plant more and more and more trees. Avoid deforestation.
we should not use the materials provided by trees irresponsibly.
Reduce meat consumption.
Opt for products that are natural and do not contain palm oil.
Gear up in reducing the usage of plastic. Bring our own bags to reduce plastic waste. Use less paper and recycle what we use. As we grow, we can take up climate careers like being a scientist or lawyer who protects nature. Let's be the generation that took action and brought our world back to life.
My dream for every child is to plant a tree and watch it grow.
Even small voices,
Even a kid's voice.
To change something big together.
Whether it's building a big bridge or just planting a tree in your garden, you can be a part of saving our forests.
A happy earth is a green earth. Together, we can tell everyone we know to make it Earth Day every day.
We protect our forests with love.
Facts and action.
Save our forests!
Okay, very good afternoon, everyone. May I get your attention, please? Okay, I know there are a lot of bustling conversation happening. Please keep that for the networking session after our program. So, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to Heat, Habitat and Hope, CDL MicroForest in action. May I please invite everyone to... Oh, everybody has taken your seat. That's amazing. Okay, thank you for joining us today at the Singapore Sustainability Academy. Before we begin, may I please get everyone to take note of the emergency exit routes, and also please switch your phones to silent mode if you have not done so. All right, so in March 2025, we unveiled the CDL MicroForest, a 2,800 square foot research-driven regenerative tropical rainforest located right here at CD Green, downstairs at level 1. So developed in collaboration with experts from the National University of Singapore, it serves as a living laboratory to study how nature-based solutions can mitigate urban heat and enhance biodiversity right here in the dense city environment. It is now my pleasure to invite to the stage Ms. Esther An, Chief Sustainability Officer of CDL, the initiator and driving force behind the successful setup of the CDL MicroForest, the very first of its kind in Singapore.
Hello, everyone. This is like a new child 1 year birthday, today. I'm so happy to see some of the friends here and also some new faces here. And I think where you are, Sustainability Academy or SSA, is a very favorite place for many people build their network and also build their love for sustainability. And this will not happen without collaboration. In 2017, we opened this on the World Environment Day, and since then, as a rent-free space, we brought along a lot of people. 56,000 people have walked through this humble space and are taking part in courses, training, collaboration, workshop, and everything. And 2 years ago, the demand was so great that we couldn't meet the requirement. And at that time, actually, the then DPM Hing asked us, like, hey, I think you need more space. So we built the annex over the other side 2 years ago. And the booking is like packed until almost the next quarter or next half of the year already. So now, MicroForest is also another really strong power case of collaboration. And there will be a story that you will hear how this MicroForest come about. But I really want to thank the people who have actually made this happen. And of course, we are private sector, and we're a sustainability practitioner, but we don't have the knowledge about ecologies and microforests and all that. So I have two very powerful, experts, and of course, Dr. Adrian Lu and Professor Vera Skarand. They are really like the father of, the microforest. So, yeah, for those who are interested to know how this idea came about, it was actually mooted in Baku, COP29, the last day that Adrian and I were waiting for shuttle bus back to hotel. Then we were like, hey, hello, you're here. We never work together, must work together lah, Then he said, oh, do you know where this microforest? I said, I don't know, let's talk. Then that was November, then December, and then in March, we built and unveiled the microforest by President Taman. So the rest, you will hear the story from the video. And also, I'm really very thankful. Actually, Professor Winston Chow was supposed to be here, but he has flown off, a couple of days ago. But he said, I want to be here. So there will be a video message from him. And the rest, I hope you will enjoy. At the end of the event, you will know everything about microforest. The most important thing is impact. 1 year, the Living Lab, what can we deliver as a report card? And what is our wish for next? How do we scale up to make microforests a powerful nature-based solution to cool urban spaces? You feel the heat, right? It's really, really hot today, yeah? Okay, thank you so much, and I'll pass it back to the MC. And maybe we can just play the video. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
First, my apologies for not being present to attend this event as I'm currently overseas. It's a pity, as a gathering with friends like Esther, MJ, Jason, Vera, Adrian and Tuang Liang is one heck of a sustainability party. Congratulations to Esther and the CDL team as well for supporting a good idea. In fact, a great green idea of having the microforest at City Green next to City Square Mall over the past year. It's an important and actionable nature-based solution towards reducing climate risk, especially for many of us here in Singapore where we struggle with the uncomfortable heat risk that we all face on a daily basis. Let me be clear, having a space where science-based adaptation actions can be deployed matters a lot. We know through multiple science assessments that cities are warmer than their surroundings as its natural surroundings are replaced by concrete, glass and asphalt, which is a main cause of the urban heat island. Now, when you add the fact that climate change from additional greenhouse gas emissions is pushing global temperatures higher, as well as driving heat waves to become more frequent and intense, you then have a problem which can affect everybody living in cities. I grew up in a Singapore that used to have regular maximum temperatures of 33 to at most 34 degrees Celsius. Now we have 35, 36 degrees C, and as the NEA has projected in the third National Climate Change Study released in 2024, maximum temperatures of 37 degrees Celsius in Singapore is a reality that may become true sooner rather than later. So the big question is, how can cities stay cool and livable in a warming world? Unsurprisingly, a powerful answer is to bring back nature into cities. Instead of relying only on aircon and other grey infrastructure, cities are increasingly turning to green infrastructure, like you see behind me. Also, like the microforest outside City Square Mall, to regulate temperatures by shading, by evapotranspiration, and by storing less heat compared to concrete and asphalt. We've noted the effectiveness of green spaces in the Cooling Singapore initiative that my SMU team, together with Prof. Jason's team from NUS and Prof. Perrin Hamill's team from NTU, have participated in. Some of our work into looking at the risks from heat in Singapore will be presented here, and Prof. Jason will also talk about his work on what makes heat risk so formidable. But what's needed is more evidence on the effectiveness of green infrastructure in the Singapore context, and what Profs Vera and Adrian will present and discuss later is also critical. A compelling case for microforests in cities is not just about its cooling effects, but the enhancement on biodiversity and the ecological resilience that are also important co-benefits of having the microforest. But even the best science and the best data won't mean much without two important aspects. One of which is how we communicate the information in a way that resonates. I'm very glad that BioGirl MJ can speak to the importance of great science communication. In particular, how she has weaved the work she has done with the eco-train with the presence of the Microforest Living Lab. Far too often, people in Singapore live separated from nature. So the work done by MJ and her Just Keep Thinking team with CDL support has been very successful in reconnecting Singaporeans with nature. The second thing I want to point out is that nature-based solutions like this can't succeed without two important agents of change. Governmental leadership, in which Tuang Liang has been instrumental in his role, is one of them. Indeed, impressive progress has been made with the vision of becoming a city in nature. But the government alone can't create greener cities. In Singapore, private companies and the commercial sector also shape the urban environment. Think about office buildings, shopping malls, housing developments, or even empty plots of land waiting for the redevelopment. These spaces all offer opportunities to introduce greenery. And the good news is that green infrastructure can make strong business sense. Buildings surrounded by greenery are often more attractive to tenants, employees, and customers. Studies increasingly show that access to green spaces improves well-being, productivity, and even creativity. In other words, trees are good for business as well as for the planet. For companies that care about sustainability and ESG goals, investing in green spaces also sends a powerful message. It shows that climate action is not just about distant carbon targets, but it is also about making the places we live and work healthier today. And for that reason, full credit to Esther and the team for starting this initiative that makes a difference. Once again, apologies for missing this event, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day with a great group of sustainability champions. Thank you, and hope to see you all around soon.
Thank you so much to Esther, and also we extend our gratitude to Prof. Winston for pre-recording this video ahead of time. So now let us enjoy another video produced by the Just Keep Thinking team as we take you through the CDL MicroForest and the CDL Eco Train.
About a year ago, City Developments Limited introduced something quite special right here at City Square Mall, a microforest, specifically the CDL MicroForest. It started as an idea to bring more nature back into our urban spaces. But what began as a small forest quickly grew into something much bigger. And behind this vision is someone who has been championing sustainability for many years, CDL's Chief Sustainability Officer, Esther An.
The idea of microforest was actually mooted in November 2024. At the end of COP29 at Baku, I had a conversation with Dr. Adrian Nook from NUS Nature-Based Climate Solutions. I was sharing with him that maybe we can work together on some projects to cool the urban spaces. Then he came up with the idea. I said, do you know something about microforest? Then in March 2025, we unveiled the CDL MicroForest at City Square Mall.
And this idea of bringing nature closer to people didn't stop at the forest. The microforest became part of CDL Eco Train's journey as well. The CDL Eco Train has always been a space where people can learn about climate and sustainability in a hands-on manner. That's why forests were chosen as the very first theme, because forests play such a vital role in regulating our planet's climate. The CDL MicroForest gave visitors, especially children, a chance to not just learn about sustainability, but to actually experience it.
I am Lauren, my age is 7. My favorite part is when we went out to see the plants.
I am Ang Ishan. I am 8 years old. They plant things there and then the butterflies eat the flowers there.
The microforest complements the mission of CDL Eco Train, which is meant to be an education platform for the children to see and touch and feel microforest. They are convinced that we all should protect nature and how to contribute to restore biodiversity.
Through workshops and hands-on learning, students get to discover how small ecosystems work, from soil to plants to wildlife. And when learning happens outdoors like this, the lessons tend to stick.
My name is Elijah and I am 10 years old. The biggest thing I learned today is that plants give us shade and it helps us feel cool.
I learned that it helps connect the bigger forest so that animals can move in between.
Today I learned to protect the wildlife.
Over time, as the microforest grew, we began noticing things start to change. Butterflies started appearing, bees started pollinating the flowers, and even a pair of hornbills were spotted here. And that's one of the most exciting signs that a small ecosystem is starting to come alive.
We can really see the potential of microforest because all you need is a small area in any development instead of using 1,000 square feet, for example, for ornamental landscape. You can use it for microforest to restore and regenerate nature.
A small forest in the middle of a city showing us that sustainability isn't just an idea, it's something we can build and nurture. And if one microforest could bring back nature here, imagine what many more could do for Singapore. Here's to a cooler and greener city in nature.
Thank you for the wonderful video by JKT. May we now invite MJ, co-founder of Just Keep Thinking, to share more about CDL Eco Train and the microforest in 2025.
Hello everyone. Thank you for coming all the way here and spending your time at the beautiful SSA. So my name is MJ. I'm the co-founder of Just Keep Thinking, which is a social media company that focuses on educational content, a lot of it focusing on sustainability, and also handling the CDL Eco Train with my team. So actually I'm not the captain, so I have a manager that is doing a really, really good job at handling the CDL Eco Train, Michelle. Yeah, so I'll be sharing a bit more about the Eco Train initiatives and what we have achieved in the past year. I just came back from from a learning journey outside. So I was like, whoa. But it's like Singapore Botanic Gardens where there's a reforested area, forest that's restored, through many years of hard work and effort. So it kind of mirrors what we're trying to do here in the urban surroundings. And really very grateful to Esther for giving us this opportunity to start the Eco Train, number one, but also to now have a microforest where we can teach more people about urban greenery, which is it's not the first topic that you think about teaching the public and the schools. So I have a lot of slides, but don't worry, I will just chop. So 1 year of CDL Eco Train, our journey so far. Yeah, so obviously really very privileged to actually have President Tarman here to open the train together with us and with the kids who won the CDL storytelling contest. So they were amazing. Okay, wait, let me see. Oh, next one. Here. Yes. So we started off with the first theme of rainforest because I think it's the most relatable to many people out here, right? Like we do have forests in Singapore, and we're talking about Southeast Asia. Mainly it's like the tropical environment. Forest will be something that is the most relatable or something that we think about. Yes, and next slide. Yeah, so just to show you how it looks like, after this session, you guys can join the tour of the CDL Eco Train. So we have panels on various aspects of the forest, the ecosystem services that it provides. But you can see that they're all using their phones to scan. So we made it a gamified segment where they will log in, and then they will have to find my little cat, who's actually the true boss and captain of the train. It's my cat, not me. And then after they scan the cat, they'll answer a question. But to answer the question, they have to find the answer from the board itself. So we kind of force them to learn, but it's a gamified learning, so they don't feel pressurized that they are learning because they are motivated to finish the game. Because at the end of the game, they'll be twisting gachapon where they will get a little prize. So yes, I think this kind of creative way of really making sure people learn but not forcing them to is something that me and my team really enjoy. And I think this first round with the CDL Eco Train was very successful, and we've heard very good feedbacks. Yeah, so some of the cats are a bit lower. I'm telling you all the answers right now, so yes. And then some of the boards are a little bit more interactive where they can actually touch and play. Yes, and they can actually write their messages for the forest. So leave a message, you get it? Like leave your message of hope. Yes, so they will actually stick all around the train, so you can imagine, right, like there's more leaves and then it really increasingly looks more like a rainforest. And we also have workshops that we conduct free every Saturday and Sunday for the public, so anyone can join. It's more of like a drop-off event, but sometimes the parents will join in as well. So it's really fun. It's a dedicated 1.5 hours of workshop where they learn a bit more in-depth about the rainforest, ecosystem services, the biodiversity, the importance, conservation efforts that we are making here. Again, of course, through gamified segments, we brought in real specimens that they can actually take a closer look, because not everyone gets the chance to see like the real animals there, right? So we actually brought in specimens. Hey, these are the animals that you can actually find at the microforest. The rainforest of Singapore. Yes, and then they get to make their own little bookmark where they get to bring back as memories. And I think what the CDL Eco Train really does, on top of reaching out to the mainstream audience and children, is also it provides opportunities for the youths to actually come and, part-time, or they join us and they get to conduct the workshops. So I thought it was a good learning platform, and we gave so many opportunities to new people, freelancers, or youth that just graduated, or just want opportunities to conduct workshops, right, to gain the experience. Yeah, so I thought that was it's a nice platform, for them to start out without feeling too pressured, So these are all some of my freelancers, my part-timers that actually had the chance to conduct such a workshop and feel fulfilled from it as well. And then moving on to our microforest adventure. So this was a micro refresher where we, like 1/3 or one half of the panels, we kind of switch it to focus a little bit more about microforests. So still forest theme, but when the microforest was up, it's like, it's time to spotlight the microforest that's right outside the CDL Eco Train. So when you come to this part, if you visit the Eco Train later, you can actually look out here where we marked out the tree that was planted by President Tarman. Yeah. So it's like as they walk, they'll be able to see, right? The public will be like, hey, why got this circle here? And then they will actually learn more about the microforest. Because sometimes you walk past it not thinking that it's anything. But yeah, we've pointed it out. You can actually know, hey, there's actually a microforest there. So the panel, we've revamped it. And my team, we have amazing designers, so they drew it in a nice way to share very simply, what the microforest does. So it's a living laboratory. It collects data. It attracts biodiversity back. Yes, and of course, our workshop changed as well. So we now bring the kids into the microforest itself. And of course, we gamified it. So what better way than to put really cute mascots of the animals that you could find in microforests. Things like the butterfly, some of them a bit more rare. Okay, we don't have a snake yet. Hopefully one day we'll have it. Yeah, and we give them names, and give them characters. So this is a shopaholic snake. Shopaholic butterfly. What's her name? Bella the butterfly, yes. She has shopping bags. And this is a python who's like a little boy, So Patrick the python. Is it Patrick the python? Oh, I've forgotten. Yes. And then they have to answer questions very simply, but let me show. Yeah, so every mascot, they will share a fact about the microforest, how it helps urban greenery, how it has the environment. So microforest clean the air. Microforests connect green spaces, so they will get the answers from reading the mascot's board. Yeah, so really, really, really fun. We're bringing in all of them. Yes, then we're going to go through all the different mascots because they have to fill up. And then at the end, they'll open a little treasure chest that will lead them to their prizes. So things that motivate, kids to really hey, I want to do this. I want to learn so that I can get my prize at the end. Yes. Yeah, so they'll be in a row with the clipboards. Quite cute, they're all and then someday they'll be like, oh, there's too many trees. I was like, yes, this is how true forests look like, right? It's not manicured. But then they get to learn, this is how, it's supposed to be a little bit messy, mimicking the forest layers. And from there, they get to understand, what's actually a manicured green space versus a more natural-looking one. Yeah, so nice fresh air, clean water. So that's when they know the pangolin saying microforest actually provides that benefit. And then we'll go through with them the answers. And one thing I want to highlight, we also talk about urban heat island effect. So for one of the segments, we actually show the map that was done in a study by NUS, the heat map, right? And we compare that to a map where there was patches of forest in Singapore, which is mainly in the middle, the western side, Pulau Ubin and Tekong area. And then they could see very clearly the ones that were bluish from the heat map really aligns with the map where there are forests around. So with that, right, it was a very easy way to share with the kids. Simply that having forests actually cools the greenery instead of verbalizing. I showed them the map and they could see it, they could align it very clearly that once you have forests, the temperature goes down. So yes, I don't have it here, but that's what we do when we talk about urban heat island effect right here. Yes, and of course, oh wow, they create their own little microforests themselves. And we laminate it because it will be a little bookmark that they can keep it and use it. So yes, many of them are very excited to design their own microforest. So they are little urban designers at the same time. Yes, more happy moments. Happy moments. Of course, we also conduct private events. So schools, especially on weekdays when it's not too crowded, we'll bring schools in. The teachers are very excited to bring them into the microforest to learn through the exhibition, through our workshop space. Yeah, so schools, whether it's many different schools for all ages and levels. So this is a higher institution. Yeah, so even though it might seem kiddie, right, there's a lot to share for all ages, right? They can learn so much through the microforest exhibition on how we communicate with the mainstream audience as well. And also for corporates. So hope to see you guys there later. So we'll bring around and we can go a bit more in depth, right? What are the materials that's being used in the microforest, how some of them are actually recycled materials or upcycled. Yes, and we also had special events where we had Barney Swan and Robert Swan, yes, the two legends coming in to say hello to the kids. And of course the ocean geographic people, yes, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so after a year, we have more than 70,000 visitors. It's a bit crazy now with the March holidays. But that's great, We like it when it's busy. 105 workshops conducted, almost 1,800 workshop participants, and 23 private events hosted. So it's been a wild ride, and I hope to do more and see you guys at the CDL Eco Train. Thank you!
Thank you so much, MJ. And her team, they work really hard to help run the programs. So thank you so much. So next up, we're going to talk about heat today. So heat is often described as the silent killer of climate change, claiming more lives globally than any other climate-related hazards, yet receiving very few and far less attention. To help us understand why heat matters, let us invite Associate Professor Jason Lee, Director of the Heat Resilience and Performance Center and Chair of the World Health Organization, World Meteorological Organization, Global Heat Health Information Network, Southeast Asia, to share with us. Prof. Jason, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, she's MJ, I'm JL. Yeah. The message I got to say this afternoon are pretty much what I said recently at the USS Congress. So for those who were there, this is a refresher. For those who weren't there, right, pay attention. I will sum up my presentation with the acronym HOT. H being heat as a big horizontal in our society. H, horizontal. Yeah, O meaning we must operationalize whatever we do. Yeah, so do things with an end in mind. And then finally, dare to be transformative. Yeah, there's always work. People like to go for low-hanging fruits, right? Do that. One day you will run out of low-hanging fruits, yeah. So remember to invest upstream. Remember to be transformative, to think of real solutions. Yeah, so there are always questions to be addressed. I ask that you ask the business questions, important ones. Okay, so these are to the researchers. So remember, HOT, horizontal, operationalize, transformative. Again, I want to acknowledge my team. Afterwards, I know there is a good exhibition, No Bias, Cooling Singapore, put together by NUS, NTU, SMU in this case. Yeah, I see a lot of team members here, and congratulations to Perrine again, who just got her promotion. And I heard you have a lot of cakes. A big shout out to you. Yeah. Okay, only a few slides now. Big horizontal. Yeah, in the past, I like to speculate why we didn't put in more resources. Perhaps because we thought we look at the literature and say if heat were a problem, then there will be heat deaths. We look at our data and say, not really in Singapore. Maybe it's a small problem, and therefore we put in corresponding resources. But now, you heard the announcement, you saw the movements. I think we've come to the point we acknowledge heat cut across all sectors, every population. Yeah, I always said those listening to my lecture, I don't think, let's take a bet, I don't think any one of you here will die of heat stroke. I don't think so. Yeah, but all of you here will be compromised in terms of a human health and potential if you do not know how to deal with heat. In fact, to you, I ask that you use heat to your advantage. Now, when I review journals, the methods session paper coming from Singapore or tropics, they said, surely you must declare that you are tropical natives, therefore heat acclimatized. I always say, you got it wrong. I know we are expert in escaping from the heat. We are behaviorally very good. Yeah, in Singapore, very difficult to die of heat stroke, yeah, because walk 5 minutes, you find somewhere you can cool yourself down. Having said so, with our super aging population, we might experience the double whammy. Yeah, compromising majority of us, you don't want to see the headline news one day, a certain elderly died because of a very hot day. I personally experienced that. People ask me, what was my biggest setback in my career so far? It was in 2018 when Corporal First Class Dave Lee passed in the Singapore Armed Forces. Some of you remember that? Yeah, we cannot let that happen again in SAF, outside SAF. Because every hit case we look back is not 99% preventable. It's 100% preventable. Yeah, so let's be more proactive. But the good thing is, we are investing this not just to prevent that one death. We are investing this to augment everyone's human health and potential. Yeah. On one hand, you can say 85 years old life expectancy. Wow, that is macam like top 3 in the world. Huh? Let's maintain that. Or you can look at it from the other side. With good governance, resources, healthcare system, maybe it should be every Singaporean, every resident 100 years old, easily. Yeah. So be ambitious and challenge. Where are this is hypothetical, huh? But I put forth this case. Maybe the 15 years, part of it is due to us not harnessing heat to our advantage. Therefore, we say we have mental health issue. I say you have free vitamin D outside. We have myopia issue. I say go out there, the sun can also give you good eye health. I say I have no time to exercise. I say half your exercise time outside, you get the same cardiovascular strain. See, if you learn how to use heat to your advantage, you can augment your human health and potential. There's a lot of things I can say here, but see this slide and see which part works for you. Today it's easier to ask what you are doing is not affected by heat. Yeah, because heat is a big horizontal. You say, no, I want to exercise well, sleep well, and eat well. Heat has a direct impact in how you sleep, how you exercise, how you eat. Yeah. People who are slightly on the heavier side, we always say go for a swim. They say, I swim for 6 months, your recommendation, lousy. I lose a little bit, I count the calories. I swim 6 months every morning, 20 laps. Then we ask, do you eat very well after the swim? He said, I eat very well after the swim. Remember, the fishball and the mee siam used to sell very well at a swimming pool. You don't see food stores at running track. Oh, you understand. Hey, the mechanism. If I can manipulate heat, depending on whether you want to eat more or eat less, we can use heat to our advantage. I will pause there. So I want to present heat to you in another light. Not the typical more heat, you get heat stroke. That is true, but more nuances. In order to operationalize things here, I think it's important to know what to date we have invested in heat. These are just 15, 20 projects coming out from my end. There are more out there. It's time to consolidate all our heat efforts. Yeah, really approach it, you call it mixed model, transdisciplinary, We need to look at it and each expert stand out. Provide your niche. Look at this holistically. Why we need the social scientists? Because some of the things cannot be quantified using physiological biomarkers, Why you need the basic scientists or quantitative scientists? Because you'll be surprised, people who are most vulnerable often will tell you, no problem lah. The uncle cooking the Hokkien mee, you see him sweating profusely, very hot. Go interview him. He may tell you, no problem lah. Because from day one, he was experiencing, in that context, the start of his career. I've been to South Asia, New Delhi, they will tell you, hey, chill, 40 degrees is considered cool here, 50, then we get a bit worried. You'll be surprised, people who are most vulnerable can get used to discomforts. And therefore, you have to ask both qualitatively and quantify objectively. So I ask today across disciplines to come together, tackle this collectively. Very basic technical slide. It's not just hot weather. This is what we are after. Whatever we do, urban planning, greenery. Afterwards, in this business, we want to reduce heat strain. Remember their attire, physiology of the person, physiology of the work, behavior response of the individual. There's a bit more to this equation now. No point doing 10 more studies and say cold drinks and cold shower are good to beat the heat. Only for my late grandmother to say that, no. When you're hot, cannot take cold drinks, cold shower. Yeah, it is warm tea, warm shower, for example. So why? Because grandma had shaped by traditional and cultural practices. Yeah, so know what are their position and then curate accordingly. I cannot see your minutes, so I just keep on going on because my eyesight is very poor because I avoid the heat all the time. But knowing these are also very powerful. Now you know when it's very hot, how traditionally said, no, we cannot work because it's very hot. Now you say, no, who said I cannot work? I can manipulate attire, okay, fair, you go naked in Singapore, you're still hot, right? But I can manipulate my physiology. That's where work-rest cycle, reduce your intensity or duration. Yeah, so you don't have to stop work if you know, oh, actually I'm after this. Now I know there are other parts I can manipulate. It's easy to say stop work. I tell you the most vulnerable populations that we most worry about. Tell them to stop work, they will say that is the lousiest advice because before they will take actions to protect their health, you ought to secure their livelihood. Yeah, so don't go with the easy way out. Finally, I also want to call that we operationalize. This is a new asset, again, sponsored kindly by our Ministry of Defense, 5 million worth. And you see we have the physiology beats. Climate is always there. We have a thermal mannequin to account for the attire. We deliberately put this there, air quality simulation. Us MINDEF don't pay because we learn from our behavior and implementation science. It's not about solution. Whoever is responsible for the mandate, right, must be involved in the co-creation. So we are hinting, NEA, yeah, you should contribute this part because MINDEF has paid for the whole body. Yeah, you contribute this part because this is partly your mandate also. You know why? Because today our heat stress advisory say what? Go outdoor if you can, cooling malls, water fountain. When transboundary haze, what will happen? You say shut everything, close your windows, right? The last thing you want to offer my late grandmother is, Amma, these are two set of advisory. Now got heat and haze, you self-interpret. The same broom that she hit you will appear again. So research must sense make, because some of this stressor and the resultant advisory can be contradicting. In 2022, when COVID and heat wave occur in the Europe, there was huge confusion because COVID tells them to say isolated, heat wave advisory asks them to get out there. So we need to work it out and therefore make it real, operationalize your research. Transformative, my final slide here. Challenge. I'm a huge supporter and believer of MSS NEA, so I'm just teasing. Here I say that candidly, make them lose their job. One day we envision, we don't need all these prediction, making assumptions to know how hot my people are. With IoT, wearables, super duper AI, come quantum, I can know everyone real-time, non-invasively, how hot they are. Everyone is tech. And therefore, when my ama, same ama again, is hot, the next of kin will be triggered, the neighbor will be activated, knock at the door, and see whether she's okay or not. So think, don't be entrapped by how people do business because this was how it's done for decades. Go back to first principle and say, if our business is identify the outliers, what can we do to pick out the individual? Of course, we are not there yet. Yeah, this is just a showcase working with enterprise. Remember, government push out policy, researcher do the research, right? Enterprises have to step forward. More queen bees like Esther have to appear in our society. Yeah, so proof of concept, one day we can see human real time in mass. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Associate Professor Jason Lee, for reframing how we should understand heat. So if heat is the challenge that's facing our cities today, then the next question we need to ask ourselves is, can nature be part of the solution? So this brings us to the heart of today's program. We are now moving into the CDL MicroForest deep dive, exploring what 1 year of real-world data reveal about cooling by greening. First, let us welcome Professor Veera Sikaran from the NUS President's Office, specializing in engineered regenerative nature-based solution, who will share more on the concept of microforest. Prof. Veera, please.
Mics. I'm very, very appreciative of your attendance today because for Muslims in the audience, Selamat Hari Raya Puasa. Right, for tomorrow's Hari Raya, and many of you would have gone for holidays today, but all of you came here. Thank you very much. Jason doesn't get hot under the collar. He's so calm. The way he speaks is amazing. But when he showed that first slide, right, two things stood out at me, right? One is heat affects fertility. and the other one is pregnancy outcomes. So I was commenting to my friend that I think maybe Indrani Raja should actually have a look at heat issues and deal with fertility rates very differently. Maybe, maybe not. The other one I want to comment, and actually really, I would like the audience to actually acknowledge, is the work done by MJ. And MJ, like her and many of the others who are in this space, actually do it out of pure passion. And I note that she made a comment recently in LinkedIn or Facebook that people like her who actually are passionate about what they do never get the equivalent value of what they are trying to do for the environment and for nature and for the work that she does for sustainability. And many of the customers that she goes to, right, do not want to pay her because she thinks that she's doing it for free and for a service that doesn't require payment. And I think that's very, very wrong. No, I think this needs to be out there, really, right? And I think there are many people out there, I'm sorry I'm going off script a little bit, but I think I needed to make that comment. Because I think there has to be a shout out for someone like her and the people who are in this space who do work socially conscious and wanting to make a difference, working with children, and they do it because it's a business. It's not necessarily for free. And I think people out there need to acknowledge that and make sure that they get the due that they deserve. I'm going off script again, sorry. Okay, before I start, I just wanted to also acknowledge the people who are actually putting this together. Queen Bee, Esther. Queen Bee, picking up from Jason. And Queen Bee Esther has been actually a champion for what she does. And I think we should acknowledge her efforts. And she's been on a lone journey, and she's been trying to put this together, and she's been a champion and literally a torch bearer for many of the work that she does for in this space as well. Thank you very much for what you've done. And together with her team, Priscilla and all the others who actually are there and putting this together as well. I think it's amazing for them to put so much effort to put this together as well. And my colleagues, Adrian and all the others who were involved in the project, thank you very much for having me here today. Now, slides. Forgot about this. Okay, this project started quite interestingly, right? Adrian came back and met Esther at Baku. He came back, told me, bro, can you help us put this together? Because he knows I've been doing this in the industry for many years, and he told me, can you help? And I said, yes, we can. And the timeline was 2 months. 2 months to put it together, because the eco-train is going to be up, and we had to figure out how to do it as quickly as possible. And, it was a very, very quick turnaround. But before I carry on going to the real projects that we did, right, I wanted to share a little bit about the topic that I teach in NUS Cities called regenerative cities. And I wanted to frame this in a totally different context as well to understand this, right? I've listed this because it's not a lecture. I didn't want to go through it as a lecture, but I wanted to share that the narrative and the topics that we are speaking about is moving beyond sustainability. It's moving towards regeneration and regenerative cities. And I think the topics are very interesting. When I teach my students in NUS about these topics, they told me, what's the difference? The difference is actually quite obvious, but people are not very sure what this difference is. I've listed some characteristics and key principles here, which I'm not going to read out, but for you to read and understand as well. So the principles are very clear that it's beyond sustainability, it's regenerative, and I use this hand motion to talk about it. It's circular, it keeps going and better. It's not this, which is sustainable and we sustain. It's not keeping it from deteriorating, but actually making it better and better. So the key principles are quite significantly different as well. So the regenerative built environment, this small chart, but this graphic, right, basically talks a little bit about urban greenery, and it puts together quite a lot of different things and looks at how the built environment from being green and from being gray actually can be greened up very differently as well. Nature-based solutions are quite important to be part of that whole ecosystem that we built. So the built environment can be regenerative. It's not a case where we just put some greenery in a landscape and say that's all that there is. But I think you need to figure out how to then landscape it with a totally different mindset and a paradigm shift of how this comes together, right? This is all linked in terms of how we actually then look at the layers that actually emergent layers that you see in cities, in forests, canopy layers you see in cities at different intermediate levels, the understory level, and then also the forest floors as well. These are still very much an architecture of a forest within a city as well. They're quite analogous. They're together. It's the same situation that you have. So how do you create urban vertical ecosystem habitats and ecosystems? How do you then bring natural and forest architecture back into cityscapes? And bring people, flora and fauna back in touch with each other in high-rise living. But sometimes when I do this, I also am troubled as well, because I think we need the new inclusion of technology that needs to come together. The conventional way of how we've greened a city has got to change quite quickly. And actually a paradigm shift needs to come towards urban designs that actually are beginning to be challenged by what we need to do for challenges that we face in cities now, right? This is another sketch that I put basically to do a graphic of how everything is integrated and connected within cities as well. It's about building urban green resilience within the city spaces. So this graphic basically talks a lot about really trying to integrate urban ecology. How do you then do urban farming, integrating urban greenery, and looking at many other solutions that actually include also water, plus many of the other resources that we have in cities as well. I put in this word here called green intelligence. Because I'm in the space of not only environment and nature, but also I teach in engineering. And a lot of the engineering solutions I teach are a lot to do with sensors, AI, and many of the other solutions that bring into the integration of environment, nature, and engineering together as well. So most of my students are engineers, right? And for them to understand nature and environment, find solutions with engineering solutions to understand what nature is. So some of the sensors that we're building are actually quite interesting to develop, and it's coming up, and we'll be probably going into market in about a year or so. We're trying to develop new sensing data that comes through. So the topic today is a lot to do with microforests. You know, I've been in this area for the last 40 years, doing what I do. I've run businesses, and finally now I'm back into academia. And many of the businesses I ran as a botanist, I graduated as a botanist from NUS. I did businesses in this area, worked around the world, not only in Singapore, but Africa and many other places. Putting green infrastructure into many spaces in zoos, safaris, all over the world, in different parts of Asia and in Singapore as well. The transition to coming to this was actually into NUS was a blessing in disguise. So I've been in NUS now as a practice professor for the past 5 years, and getting to look at research of what the work that I did has created impact. So now, looking at microforests, many of us have actually put together and gone into forests, actually understood forestscapes. Some of us go into forests quite regularly. And understanding a microforest is actually a small patch of trying to recreate nature and mimic nature in its urban context as much as possible. Trying to recreate something that actually exists in a forestscapes. And the characteristics are it's actually regenerative and dynamic. It's open to species recruitment, and this is very clear and very obvious. Because if you realize, if you did an ornamental landscape, you realize you try and keep the ornamental landscape as is, as much as possible, because you got a maintenance guy coming and taking everything out that comes from natural sources and keeps it as ornamental as possible. He doesn't allow anything else to grow in between. He considers them as weeds. But in the natural environment, in a naturalistic environment, you suddenly see some of the species that are growing are sprouting out naturally as well. And that's called natural recruitment. And that's part of the forest ecosystem. And in microforests, this is one of the important things that happen. We do not take it out. We actually let it grow. And actually, it's very little maintenance involved in it as well. And when we went from a garden city to now city in nature, you realize that actually there's very little maintenance because we don't cut grass. We actually keep a lot of the green infrastructure as natural as possible. So the maintenance becomes quite minimal as you go forward. So there's a lot of spontaneous colonization that occurs. If you go into the microforest, you get a chance to walk through that. And we've gone through that a few times. We realize that there are a lot of new species that are beginning to be recruited within that space as well. And the maintenance regime is not to pull them out, not to keep removing some of these naturally recruited species, but to let them grow and evolve. So it's not the normal maintenance that you'd come and remove and cut and prune and trim. So it's meant to be spontaneous. So the planting patterns are randomized as well. right? So when we evolved the design for this space, it wasn't a space where we had 2 months to design and we had got time to go and look for plant species. And I tell you, the challenge in Singapore is you cannot find some native species in the nurseries. Very few people, there's no demand, there's no market for it, because no one actually uses native species a lot, because you don't understand how native species grow in our tropical environment. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the industry also needs to be partnered with this as well. And when we came together, we decided that we need to deal with it. We had to go to all the nurseries and hunt for trees. And we had 2 months to figure that out. And because we didn't, the typical way of actually creating the microforests or forested scapes, right? You go and look for saplings. And you plant saplings and you wait for about 10 years for them to grow. And that's not possible. Within the built environment, it's not necessarily the same case as how you deploy a forest where you actually do reforestation techniques. It doesn't work that way. So the framework and the way you actually do them, build these forest scapes is actually totally differently as well. So in this particular instance, we had this space. This is what we had. When I came and I looked at it, both me and Adrian walking through, right? Esther said, that's your space. We looked at each other, oops, okay, this is the space. I honestly, when he told me a microforest, I came down, I thought it would be a larger space, so I can actually build something more substantial. But we were given this space. It wasn't very much. It's about 260 square meters. And then we said, okay, let's make this work. So it was actually a shared park with NParks as well. So NParks actually was involved in this, in maintaining this space. But nothing substantial was growing there. We just had some trees there, and that's this ground cover, and that's basically it. So had to deal with this and basically said, okay, let's make it work. So this is how it looked. We had a lot of Wedelia there, and we had the natural, with tabiboya trees that were actually originally planted. And we didn't want to cut the trees down, said, okay, let's make that trees a canopy layer and the emergence, leave it as it is, and we'll work around it and try and bring something else in, right? So the solution is we tried to recreate nature's successors. So we started looking at the tree species that we could actually then get from market. We had to look for succession species, pioneer species, succession species, and look at whether there were a lot more mature tree species that could actually be planted in between as canopy layers as well. So the choice of plants was also dependent on what we had. We knew as a botanist, we all know what trees we could use, but we couldn't find the resources for the trees. So we went around, hunted, and made do with whatever native trees that we could find in the marketplace within the landscape nurseries. So we wanted accelerated succession. We didn't want to wait 10 years or 15 years for this to evolve. So that's one of the reasons why when you go into that forest, you realize we've got some mature trees in between. We had mature trees together with saplings of different stages of growth, and we needed to create the whole structure of a forest layer, from the emergence to the canopy, to the understory, and to the forest floor. The shrubs were all chosen for that particular reason as well. And we needed to understand the botany behind and the physiology and the species that we use and how they actually will interact with each other over time as well, in a short span of time. So all these were considered when we started putting the design together. So it was layered maturity. So the design evolved, we came, and it was actually quite fast. We came in at about January, and we had to finish by March, but we had to finish by actually end February. So when we started putting that together, it was a very rushed job. So it wasn't easy. We had to go through still tender process, getting the right people in, curated the right people to come and then bid for the jobs. And then we had a lot of other issues as well. We needed to understand what new trees to plant, what species to choose, decide on the shrubs and the ground cover, and to deal with the existing trees that were there. Because when you have existing tree canopies, the challenge we have is when you do something like that, you're bringing forestry species. When you want them to become emergent, you need sunlight. So I had a competition for sunlight with the existing trees. So the trees existing actually then were a challenge as well, but we couldn't cut the trees down, so we had to figure out how to place the trees. So planting the trees was not exactly as what you see as a landscape plan on a paper. So a lot of them was done on site as the trees came in, exactly where to put, what time the sun comes out, how many hours of light you will get for that period of time for that particular tree species to do. Which are the ones which are understory, where's the shade happening, and how are they going to be all tied together, and how they're going to be placed within each area collectively together. But this is actually the most important thing. I think even Adrian didn't realize that this was actually something that I did. And for me, this was the most crucial thing that I had to do, right? When the contractor removed all the ground cover to make the whole area barren, I gave them my own microbes that I have, which actually were very, very regenerative microbes that I actually produce. I gave them microbes to actually then infill and to bioremediate the soil over 2 weeks. So I had to do it once a week, at a certain time to infill the soil, turn it around, put the microbes. I used a black soldier fly frass to incorporate into the soil, to then bioremediate the soil, and keep it barren for a few days, or if not a week at least, to keep it barren. And then after that, and make sure that's actually commissioned with enough microbes in the soil. And then we started planting. And it gave us enough time to choose and select the trees. And basically, it helped a lot. It helped a lot because one of the key factors is not to put fertilizer, no synthetic fertilizer in this area. So it was about trying to recommission the soil again, plant the tree species there, and making sure they adapt to that condition. We watered the trees only for a short period, and after a while, once they were established, no more watering. They were able to survive by themselves. And you realize that's quite crucial for how you then deal with the soil structure as well. The flora selection was limited, but we managed to get close to about 40 to 50 different species. Actually, it went up a little bit more as we added, right? We started with a small, but then we added a few more species as we went along. It was a mix of a lot of different native species, from trees to ground cover to shrubs, etc. Oh, I'm running out of time. Quickly. Okay, the result was we created habitats. We had made very large, very huge environmental impacts, and obviously community well-being is very important. And this is with President Tharman, trying to explain to him what this is. He's a big fan, by the way, all right? I have an ongoing project in Istana, which actually will turn up at some point as well, right? He's a big fan of how this became very important for what he feels that is necessary for Singapore going forward. And this was at the opening. You'll find the tree that he planted. I just took a picture of that and just sent it to him just a while ago to tell him his tree is alive still, right? Just in case. Right, so we created a pathway within the whole microforest as well to encourage people to walk through the space, right? So I'm thankful for the partnerships that we are building with CDL and all the other partners, and I think it's important. I think Jason mentioned a lot about leadership, and government leadership is important as well. I think there must be data science that comes to validate some of the work that we do. Adrian will be speaking about all the sensors and all the other other sensors that we put and the data that we've been getting from this space as well. So these spaces are transformative. They have got healing properties. They build in resilience and livability as well. And these are all scalable solutions, right? It's not just a small plot of land and we leave it, and then there are many small plots of land all over Singapore, in HDB estates plus many other spaces as well. We can do better with it. I think we discussed schools. I think schools can benefit from solutions like this. Many, many, many schools, because the school environment is going to get hotter and hotter. El Nino is coming in June, from June to October this year. The temperature is going to go up significantly in the next second half of the year. It's going to be unbearable, and the school children are going to be affected. So the nature-based solutions going in are very important, and with some urgency as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Veera. We are really thankful for your passion and your expertise in journeying with us for the last 1 year, so we're really incredibly grateful. So next, we would like to invite Associate Professor Adrian Lu, conservation biologist from the NUS Centre for Nature-Based Climate Solutions, to share and highlight key data from the past year showing how the microforest impact in reducing local temperature, enhancing biodiversity, and improving ecological resilience. Prof. Adrian, please.
Hi, afternoon everyone. Thanks for being here. I'll speak from here, okay? So the lessons learned, be careful what you say to Esther. Because she'll take the idea and then it's like, wow, we are on a roller coaster ride, a speed train, you know. That's not an eco train, that's a speed train. Okay, we were just going with a lot of ideas she was throwing in and putting at us, and a lot of discussion, but really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the kind of leadership that she has in the corporate world. I think you all can acknowledge that, right? Yeah, let me just go through that. Oh yeah, so Prof. Jason, right? Sorry, one slide back. Can you just one slide back? Yeah, so Prof. Jason said begin with the end in mind. So, you know, this is, I think about a month ago, this guy Lumin, he's an insect expert, and he was just looking at insects. I was like, hey, can you look at the insects? We've got some data, and can you look at the insects? He took so many wonderful pictures, and it's all on iNaturalist. And this is how the microforest looks like right now. So, you know, begin with the end in mind. It's very cool inside. And yeah, so I just want to give you a context that microforest is like a basketball court. From time to time, there'll be some renovation going on. And then suddenly last, I think July, there's one big construction for the north-south line as well. So it's really facing a lot of challenges, but it held its own. So I want to talk about three things, temperature, birds, and scale. The scale of things, yeah. So these are the three things we will cover, but before I go ahead, right, I want to introduce Akane-san. She's my student. And yeah, so I think she has a microforest in your hometown, right? Your mom was saying, yeah. So she'll be presenting the temperature side, and I'll just follow up with the birds and some of the eDNA stuff that we have. So there are three salient points here, and I hope the data speaks for itself. Yeah, Akane.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Adrian. I'll be presenting about the temperature part that we analyzed. So first we had two stationary sensors, one inside the microforest area and one outside. So this one has been continuously measuring from February 1st last year until February 31st of this year. Yes, and they were placed at around 2-meter heights, and the data was collected every 30 minutes. Okay, so this is the results that we got. This graph shows the average daily temperature inside and outside the microforest. So this arrow here shows around the time when the microforest was publicly open. And from this graph, we can see that the mean temperature inside the microforest was consistently slightly lower than outside. And breaking it down to different time frames, these three graphs show the morning, noon, and evening temperatures around the time frame indicated. So we saw that, especially during the noon time, we saw that the temperatures inside the microforest were consistently lower than outside throughout the years, for all of the months. Yes, and if you compare the graphs, you can also see that the noontime also showed the most prominent differences. So from this, we believe that the microforest was able to better regulate the daily temperatures, the diurnal temperatures throughout the year, compared to the concrete areas outside of the microforest. However, with the stationary sensors, the two stationary sensors alone, we didn't have clear resolution or understanding of how the temperatures actually differed between the different locations. So from January 13 this year to February 9th, we did some further data collection with handheld sensors so we could get a better understanding of the spatial temperatures. So we had 12 measurement points, one in the middle of the courtyard, so in the middle of the pavement, there's no cover there. And near the eco-train, we call this the courtyard area away from the microforest. It's about 6 to 7 meters away. And we have the courtyard area next to the microforest, which is just about 1 meter from the microforest, and the microforest itself, and the outside road area, where there's probably some construction happening right now. and the outside road intersection, which is just a junction outside. So the 12 measurement points were measured at morning, noon, and evening, only on sunny days. It's the same time frame as the stationary sensor data I showed you. And each of these time frames, morning, noon, and evening, were repeated 5 times and measured at about 1.5 meter heights so that we could get a better understanding of the temperature we would be feeling in these different areas. So this is the results that we got from the handheld sensors. As you can see, especially in the noon time, on average, the microforest was up to 5 degrees cooler compared to the outside road intersection. And also, like the courtyard area next to the microforest, even though it was only about 1 meter away from the microforest, it was also observed to have lower temperatures. For the morning and evening temperatures, we saw that the temperatures were about the same for all of the sites. And also please note that the scale is different for each graph. So this, for example, shows just 5 degrees difference, but this one, the noon graph shows up to 11 degrees in the axis bar. So it's quite a significant difference, I guess. So going a bit more to the statistical side of the results I just showed, we saw there was no statistical difference between the microforest and the area immediately next to it, which suggests that, yeah, the microforest and just the area immediately next to it, it has a bit of a buffering effect. So that's why the statistics are quite close or similar. But for all of the other areas, middle of courtyard, away from microforest, outside road, and the road intersection, these were shown to be statistically different. And as you can see, in reference to the microforest, these areas showed up to 4.95 degrees difference. Oh, by the way, this is for the noon time. So we can see that for the noon time, yeah, these are the temperature differences that our handheld data suggests. And now I would like to show you something a bit fun. So we created a 3D spatial image of the microforest, and along with the handheld temperature data that we showed. So I would like to show this all to you guys. Okay, so this is a LiDAR scan of the microforest. This block you see here is the eco train, and this is the microforest scan that we took. And these floating bubbles all show the area which we took the handheld data. So if I zoom in a bit. Yeah, so each of these points now show the temperature that we actually measured at each of these points. And I'll turn on contrast, which will make it a bit more visually clear what the temperature difference is. So the more purple or cooler colors show a lower temperature, and the more red dots show a higher temperature. And as I move the scale bar, it shows the different time frames that we measured. And we can see, for the most part, the outside pavement areas, which have little to no shading, seem to have higher values, especially in the noon time, so like more reddish orange color, while the inside of the microforest is shown to be a bit more blue or purple, indicating slightly lower values. Okay, so this was mostly it for our results of the temperature section, and now I'd like to hand the mic to Prof. Adrian to talk about.
Thanks, Akani. This visualization was done by one of my interns from Singapore Poly, I think. Yeah, he's a gamer. And then I was like, can you do this? Then Keith there, I was running around with the handheld LiDAR. Where are you, Keith? Yeah, Keith, yeah. So he's joining NParks soon, so that's great. Yeah, so you see technology could be really interesting, right? So the data is like speaking for itself. And now I'm going to talk to you about bioacoustics. So we had recorders that record sounds. And I have a recorder inside the microforest and the recorder outside the microforest. And what was really interesting was that it confounded us like, oh, they are showing the same species. So like I thought there would be the different species inside the microforest versus outside, but they're quite close. So there's some overlapping collection of sounds, okay? But then we delve further into the data, and this data is really just collected by acoustics. And what does that bioacoustics do, right? What do we do is that it uses this thing called convoluted neural network, a machine learning to understand the sounds. So the sounds are actually transformed into an image, right? A graph, kind of image with intensity, and then the machine learning will actually learn that. And what it does, it just sends it to a database, and then it pulls the thing out. So the database right now is a bit more biased to North American birds, but there are Southeast Asian birds. So we had to circumscribe the birds. And also we had to give a more confidence level. And not only that, right, there's always a human in the loop to actually look at the birds, and this is just rubbish. Maybe the AI is hallucinating, or it's just listening back and just ascribing it to another bird. So we were careful, we curated that, we took out those birds. But what was really interesting was this fact that the birds were really more active in the microforest. You know, there was more activity there, and if I was to show a graph, right? And so these are birds that are residents. Some of them may not be native, they're migrants as well, or they'll be introduced and then they become residents. So you can see the data is just showing that the microforest is a refuge for the birds. Yeah. Can I get to the next slide, please? Oh, okay. Yeah. And then so we have about 38 species there that we actually listed out. And you can see the graph showing you the high bird activity inside the microforest. What happened here, right, was construction. So there was the construction here, and it's probably disturbance. And so with more funding, we can have better study. But just understand, this is one microforest, you know. We could study more, we could study it in a more bigger contextual way and all that. So it's exciting though to see that a small microforest like that, right, in the heart of a city, right, if you look at the Google map, right, you just see urban areas. So, but then, you know, this is a refuge, you know. Okay, so we talk about temperature, we talk about birds, right? Let's now go down to scale. So this is crazy, you know, like let's go down to scale. And we have with us, right, technology now that can do that. So everything here, right, you see from this interesting contraption, right? We collect the soil. We don't collect a lot, you know. We just collect in like a meter square, and we have to wear proper shoes. It's all sanitized and sterile. And then we take some leaf litter, and we take a bit of soil. We take a bit of soil from 4 points, and then we pull them together. And in the end, you just have this little soil only. And it was from one side, there was a sort of like a pavement with some plants, okay, just a normal curated landscape plants, right? And then one inside the microforest. I chose one that was inside, deep down inside in the center, and we took the soil as well. And we took the DNA, we extracted it. This is a bento box. Every equipment, right, can fit in a suitcase. We brought this to Thailand when we did an expedition in the mountains, and this can fit in a suitcase, just crazy. And then it just sequences this gene, right? We amplify all the genes, and it's like looking for all the organisms inside this soil and just amplifying this. It's called cytochrome oxidase. It's a mitochondrial gene. It's common to all life, right? And then it goes and runs through the database, and we put a 95% confidence level. You know, it needs to match. Yeah, so next slide, please. And this is what we got. So my friend here, Mr. Regenerative, Veera Sekaran, he's a good pal of mine. I sort of like begin to understand what you mean by regenerative, The tree grows, you get shade. Okay, notwithstanding the microbes that eat through. I mean, it's just, yeah. And the leaves that are falling and all that. So what we have here is like the kingdom, the animal kingdom, right? These are multicellular animals, flatworms, some ribbon worms, and maybe some snails, right? And some insects and some earthworms. So you can see within the microforest, you're seeing really a bigger level. The data just shows it, right? Up to maybe just shy of 50% number of biodiversity, basically. So we wanted to look further into the arthropods, basically all these insects and your other things. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so we just focus on the arthropods and look at the arthropods, right? We have, if you look at the comparison here, right, what we are seeing, right, is there are more Lepidoptera means butterflies and moths, okay? Thysanura is like your silverfish, different species of silverfish, and then beetles, and then this is your grasshoppers and katydids. Hymenoptera are your ants and bees. So we are just detecting the DNA from the soil. You don't often see these animals. I mean, you could do a survey and get these animals out as well. But, down to the smallest one, right, you really need something like eDNA to show you. Yeah? Okay, next slide, please. So, yeah, so back to regenerative microforest, right? The eDNA picked out millipedes. They are really great. Millipedes, springtails, and of course earthworms. Earthworms, right? They aerate the soil, and these guys are breaking down detritus. They are breaking down organic matter to give it back to the soil. So that's what's happening here. Of course, like this is an invasive ant. Yeah, we also see this. It's not native, but it's everywhere in Singapore. But you can detect these sort of things as well. Next slide. So that was about scale. The scale. Like we didn't just look at birds. Birds are very important in Singapore, because they are very important biodiversity. Yeah, so that's about scale. We can see more things with eDNA, and it's just showing that the microforest is supporting biodiversity. That small microforest. Okay, so we have this iNaturally site that we circumscribed for the site. So besides just showing you eDNA stuff and all, and bioacoustics, these are the real animals. All these pictures were taken around in the microforest or just at the vicinity, because somehow iNaturalist doesn't allow you to circumscribe. You just put a circle over the thing. And please join in, because you can upload, right, your image, right? It takes your metadata, and then it takes the picture, right, and it gives you a suggestion. And I've got real experts there that spend their lives looking at insects and birds, and they look at it and they curate it for you. So you can participate in that if you can. So these are the amazing things, that you see. My goodness, I think Akane was sending us a picture. The next slide, please. Yeah, of this, yeah. So look at this beautiful plant. That's a Leah. That's a Leah. I named my daughter after this plant. But you see, we knew, right, that if we plant the correct plants, right, these butterflies, right, they have GPS systems in their antenna and their feet, and they can detect small little pheromones. They will come, and it becomes like a refuge for them. So all the data we have, but a picture speaks 1,000 words. So this was that. Yeah. I think I've reached the end of it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eugen. May we invite you to stay on stage? We're going to move on to the panel discussion segment. So may we invite Prof. Vera, Associate Professor Jason, and our moderator, Ms. Esther An, back on stage. And then I'll let Esther take this away. Here you go.
Hello. I think you all can feel the heat from the passion of all these professors. They're amazing, right? Yeah. Okay, where am I sitting? Okay, here. I'm sure the audience also have a lot of questions, so I'm going to change the format a little bit of the conventional panel. I will start with question from the audience first, since the memory is still fresh, that we saw a lot of findings. Even for us, we were kept in the dark. We want surprises and all that. So in terms of temperature, we saw it as like about almost 5 degrees cooler, and some noontime was about 11 degrees, right? It's right, okay, the noon time, okay, so I don't interpret it. So maybe you want to elaborate a little bit on the findings itself. That I'll start the first question first. Please prepare your questions, Yeah, then, was there any pleasant surprise, apart from just now we all share? And I think I will also give credits to Keith and Akane, right? The handheld monitoring of temperature is really not easy. Literally, they got to run around in different time and all. I mean, it is really the AI and digital can do so much, but it's actually the people that make it happen. So I want to see, hear from you all that based on the findings, how microforest can really be a really good nature-based solutions, and what are the really pleasant surprise that maybe exceeded your expectation? Adrian, you first.
Yeah, so for me, right, when I look at the bioacoustic data, and I could show, it showed, that the birds were actually showing a higher activity in the microforest. I was like, wow, this is really empirical data that was like supporting it as a biorefuger. I just love the idea of a refuger, in a very harsh city. Yeah, so that was one for me. And then, I always respected our late Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, right, for just planting trees, And he said that it would uplift our spirits and it would be good for the environment, cool us down. He didn't need a wealth of research, right? He just knew it, right? But this is a great reminder, that when you're inside a forest, right, it's about 5 degrees cooler than when you're standing on a sidewalk, And can we do more? Can we remember that? Yeah, I think NParks is doing a great job, but can commercial entities also come in and really support this as a whole of nation kind of effort? Yeah.
Great. Prof. Vera?
Hi.
Yeah.
I think the data has validated our suspicion quite clearly. We thought we had made some, not suspicion, apologize, wrong word to use, but our idea that actually this actually really works. I mean, we've been to forests around the world, we've seen that, but I think Singapore is definitely getting warmer and warmer. And I think there are many different solutions, nature-based solutions that exist. And I think people sometimes feel that the solutions for issues that we face in climate have to be expensive. You must use expensive solutions to make them work, and actually not necessarily so. I think some of these solutions are not necessarily very expensive. They're actually quite logical and rational as well. I think this validates, a lot of the work that we've done now validates. This is not the first microforest that I've been doing, right? I've been doing it quite a lot all over the years. I've even done a residential house, completely covered with plants, and I tell you that single house, among the cluster of houses that it exists in, right, changed the whole perception of the whole estate. Because that brought in, 2 weeks after planting, it brought in butterflies, bees. The owner of the house was amazed that this could happen just by choosing the right plants and the species and the variety and diversity of flora that came. The fauna came almost immediately. So it created habitats and it created a cooler environment. That changed the flavor of everything. And that's where his sanctuary is now. He calls it his sanctuary. He goes there and he actually sits there to meditate. He said the silence and the complete coolness that he gets, right, is amazing. It changed his life. Quality of life immediately changed. And I think these are opportunities that we can bring to other spaces in the built environment. And I think we should explore this and scale this up as much as possible.
Okay, Prof. Jason, I want to expand a little bit about heat. Yeah, we all know that Singapore is 1.5 degrees north of the equator, right? And every day will be a hot day, and it will get even hotter. And in fact, approximately twice as fast as global average for Singapore. And I think the government has done a good job that we are already achieving 40% of green cover. And I think, what I would like to ask is like, greenery can really cool, look like, number shows that. But I think, although we have the 1 million tree, campaign, but I think where we plant the trees are also very important because, whatever is planted in, far away cannot really cool our project. So I think the project-specific microforest, it is likely to be a game changer. And from the heat, specialist perspective, are you convinced that this nature-based solutions is going to work,
Yeah, I know. I'm a strong believer. We can always optimize the environment. Nature-based is one powerful way, to optimize urban design, maximize wind flow. But end of it, if I may, if we can close the loop, right? I'm always very keen with all these interventions, assuming it is the insects, the humans that we cared about, right? It'll be very powerful to close the loop. What does it mean eventually to the recipients of all these interventions? I say this here because I give you a real example. I thought with machinery now in farming, the farmers will have less time in the farms. Therefore, the overall strain will be reduced, their health will be preserved. Till I went to the rural part of Thailand, outside Khon Kaen, and realized that indeed it's true with machinery, they don't have to be in the farms for 4 hours. But we spotted the same farmers now doing odd jobs in the markets, laying additional bricks. And begin to question ourselves, with these interventions that we put in, the motivation was to reduce excessive strain, and therefore their health can be preserved. But what we saw in that case was a rebound effect. Again, citing my past life, not as a soldier, but working very closely with the military. I look at the literature with every advancement of technology, actually the load carriage of a soldier becomes heavier. You wonder why? Now I thought we have new material technology to reduce the strain. Human has this propensity, you make it easy for me, now I can do more. So I asked myself, we didn't quite solve the problem. And therefore, I'm not saying in this case the humans will be working harder and therefore more strain. In fact, it's a good thing in my opinion. Now they feel more comfortable, they spend more time outdoor, they walk more, therefore there's a certain cardiovascular strain. If we can quantify 3 months, 6 months later, their overall physical and mental health will be enhanced. If I'm the investor, I see this very high value, right? With this, it's not just thermal comfort for thermal comfort's sake. At the end of the day, it's blessing the humans, for example, or the insects, we want that biodiversity. Another example, recently CWS approached us, and then I immediately speculate, are you worried about potential heat injury with the warming world? They said, no. I said, they must be worried about productivity, right? Because with the warming world, they said, no. I said, it must be because of heat-induced discomfort leading to more accidents at worksite. They said, no. That was refreshing because I thought in my area of work, usually these are the 3 big barbers: injury, productivity, cognitive decrement. And I was very impressed when they said no, because the last mile at the aviation industry, there are still people loading out those cargoes. And they are saying, well, CWS or SQ paid very well. They might not stay in the job for too long because it's getting thermally uncomfortable. So the investment is one of welfare. Very progressive because I came from an era, as long as you get the work done, no negative consequences. I just bite the bullet and press on. But today I'm very heartened. The employer said no, a happy worker, a productive company. So the metric of success in this case is retention rate. And also I asked that we have not gone about completing what are we getting out from this investment. Some might say it's just purely thermal comfort, and also let's bless the residents, and this is how much I will invest. Here you found say, no, the same dollar I put in actually is changing health outcomes that I never quite, and therefore make my investment a lot more worthwhile. Therefore, in my work, when I traveled in this part of the world, when it's usually warm and humid, right, the most difficult part is many are not aware heat is a problem. Yeah. The general response is, what's the problem? Always hot, still hot. They say 2 degrees worst case, no problem. That is the most difficult. The advocacy, the awareness is the first step. Thank you.
Thank you. questions. I can see Robin. Yes, yeah, Robin, and then there's another hand. Oh, Jovi. Okay, Robin first, maybe. Yeah. The mic. Yeah, coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much. First of all, question about scale, Esther, we were talking about earlier on, the potential for scaling microforests in Singapore, where obviously land use is a huge issue. We've got background deforestation, loss of secondary forests. To what extent can we scale the microforests idea? Also, sorry, another question about the extent to which the biodiversity in your microforest enjoys any sort of protection. I noticed there are lots of house crows that have been recorded. In fact, it's the most popular species. Any protections that the biodiversity in that forest enjoys?
Can we have the professors to ask about the biodiversity first? Then I share a little bit more about the scale. And in fact, actually, in the audience, we have other fellow developers and building owners and all those in the audience. And that is exactly what I share with, even JTC, they're here, and I think Sentosa as well, and Changi Airport as well. So we are not selling a car or selling a commercial product. We're selling an idea that can really help Singapore to cool urban spaces through greening. So how do we scale it? I can only answer on behalf of CDL, and we have 2 microforests waiting already. So we do need to invest in landscape. Then we might as well invest in microforests that can really, have shown results that you can see data don't lie. So I think as for how we can protect the biodiversity and insect, I'll pass it on to our professors here.
I think besides stating the Wildlife Act and the Animals and Birds Act, because they're outside the nature reserves, so a lot of our animals are protected right that way. But if you think about supporting biodiversity, right, what I feel like this microforest is now is like a node and a biorefuger, and you see things coming in. So in a way, you are promoting ecological resilience, because now the butterfly has another population here. Maybe the bird has another population here. So if anything happens right somewhere else, right, you have another population here. So it's expanding its genetic diversity in some ways. So that's what we talk about in ecological resilience. So on a broader scale about deforestation and all that, I think that's beyond my pay grade, and all that. But I think it's a fair question, I think you're asking a very important question about how do we protect our biodiversity, and microforests do that. I think what you are seeing is that they spend more time there, and all those birds, right, just notwithstanding the graph I showed you was, I took out the crows and the pigeons, and I wanted to see whether the songbirds would be active there, and they are. And I was just walking with Keith, we were going to buy Caesar's cut rice because we were very hungry. And then wow, there was a brown shrike somewhere on, not in the microforest, but Kitchener Road. And I was like, wow, I think there's really hope for, this type of very intense urban areas, Yeah, yeah, but I think like what Esther says, right, we need to sell this idea to the industry as well. If you look at landscape industry, and Mr. Regenerative, Sikaran here, we really, we really had to scour a few nurseries, to hey, and I think it'd be really nice to have the landscape industry learn about native plants and, native animals as well. I think in Australia it's very easy to learn, oh, you have this kangaroo, who doesn't know it's a marsupial, right? Who doesn't know about the platypus and all that? But in Singapore, there's so many, there's so many animals, right? There's like the warbler, the Arctic warbler that comes. There's the black-necked oriole that comes, how much of it is in our literature? Yeah, so, yeah, I remember in the CDL, the storytelling, right, they do incorporate this type of things, but I think it's lost in our culture, all these animals that, like the sun kancil and the buaya and all that stuff. So, I think a bit more of the understanding is important. Yeah. Is that okay?
Jovi? Yeah. Yeah, your question?
Thank you. Hi, sorry, I'm Jovi from the Singapore. That was my exact question actually on scalability. But since you mentioned the 2 more microforests, just to confirm, you have 2 more microforests in the works by CDL? Oh.
Okay, first, there's an expansion. The first one was close to 2,800 square feet. And then in our press statement, we already announced that we have expanded another 2,800 square feet. But this time, not in such crazy timeline. They always call me crazy. Yeah, 2 months to build a forest. Are you crazy? But we like crazy, so we make it happen. But the next extension, we will try to do a little bit more, pace it out a little bit. But we are in talk to, actually, it's already on the drawing board already. One is a mixed development near residential. Another one is a community project, but I can't give you more now because we haven't signed on the dotted line yet. But that is our intent. My team and I are very, very committed to it, to hopefully build more microforests. And but we also have the public support. Afterwards, you probably will hear from our government CSO that how they are supporting us as well. Hint, hint, hint. Yeah, so while I think it is a doable, viable investment for developer, but we all don't mind to have a little bit more support, that we can do more and do faster. Yeah. Right, CSO? Yeah, okay, any other question? Okay, over there, and then here. Yeah, that gentleman first, he raised his hand faster. And then after that, yeah. Can you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Philip from SMU. I just wanted to ask, most likely Prof. Sekaran, what in Singapore's context, what are the cost savings of a microforest as compared to a well-manicured park area? Just like a rough estimate.
So I thank you for that question. I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that the cost benefits, so there are few things to do when you do valuation of greenery. There's tangible and intangible benefits, right? You need to understand the differences between these two. The tangible benefits are about when you put the greenery, so for example, an ornamental landscapes has got its value. I'm not saying that everything has to be native. You need to balance that out. But I'm also on the path of making sure that there's less ornamental plants that actually exist in our landscapes. For obvious reasons, very, very obvious reasons, because the benefits far outweigh the fact that we have got tropical native species that actually are less maintenance issues with them as well. If you do a little bit more of a naturalized planting, you actually realize that it changes the context of the landscape quite significantly. The intangible benefits are following as well, because you've got biodiversity values, carbon sequestration because saplings and natural recruitment occurs. You start adding on all the intangible benefits. You realize it far outweighs the cost of the capital expenditure that you would have within the microforest or a native planted species area, right? I always have this question for a lot of people out there, right? Do you know what our greenery in Singapore is valued at? Since we started planting the greenery. Anyone? Maybe, would you hazard a guess? The gentleman who asked the question.
Philip.
You want to hazard a guess? What's the value of our greenery in Singapore at the stage that we started as a garden city to where it is now?
At the stage where it started, including the secondary rainforest patches we used to have and everything?
The built environment, or if not, plus all the others as well. You can include that as well.
Say invaluable?
Yeah, invaluable. Exactly.
Wow,
Thank
are
you.
so smart. I will copy that answer,
True. So I ask my students the same question, right? And they give me numbers of maybe at about $10 billion, $100 billion or whatever. It's actually invaluable, right? So you need to take into context the tangible, intangible asset valuation. And I always tell a lot of the developers and people who sell their houses, right? They spend money on their gardens. And they spend sometimes $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. But the appreciation is the greenery has grown up, it matures. And no one values the maturity of the vegetation and the garden, money they've spent on the garden. When the property is sold, no one values the value of that greenery that's in the house. That was put in, and how much spent, the maintenance cost that went in there, the capital investment, etc. No one values that. So I think trying to build on that is actually the case for this particular microforest, right? Because of the short timeline, we spent a little bit more because we needed the source for the trees. But if we had enough time, we would have spent a lot less. But the attendant benefit is that the maintenance is actually very, very low. I don't have to go and prune a hedge. I don't have to cut grasses. I don't have to fertilize. I don't have insect problems because ornamental plants have got a lot of insects and diseases. Within the built environment, they struggle within the heat that is created within the built environment. So you realize when you start putting it all together, it makes perfect business sense. Or if not, a decision to actually then go with native species and put your investment in forests like this that actually will benefit you and the environment as well.
Great. There's one more hand here. Yeah, okay, the mic. Yeah. Thank you, Philip. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jason from MSE, and I would like to ask Prof. Jason about heat and also what are some of the critical messages that we need to advocate to our communities and to vulnerable people. What are some of the critical messages that they need to understand about heat beyond just it's hot? Yeah.
Yeah, this was the same question your colleagues asked when we hosted them 2 weeks ago. Yeah. I told them you need to fund us 5 million 3 years, then we can develop the answers. No, I'm just joking. But may I use this chance to respond, maybe not directly. Number one is the keyword here is community. I think in Singapore, our strength has also become our weakness. Yeah, we are too dependent on our government. And to do the heat resilience well, we cannot just depend on the government. Yeah, the community, huge trust. We've done some work. The community tell us that said, don't worry lah. When the day comes, the government will tell us what to do. I said, how about the next door? You know that it's the elderly. When very hot afternoon, would you knock at the door? Don't worry. When the day comes, government will send somebody to knock at the door. I asked ourselves, if we do a simple job, right? Remember right now, who is that vulnerable person in your mind? During very hot day, would you give a call? Would you go to the door and have a knock? That simple step will go a very long way. Yeah, the Japan classic story you hear, every summer hundreds, thousands get killed, and often they found them a few weeks later. So we do not want that to be played out. So there's one, the community resilience must evolve as if you want to do this well. Number two, I also ask that each time we ask people to invest, right, they say, I want the greatest return of investment. Nothing wrong. You want that $1 to get the maximum back. But if we do that, you imagine with me, we will unintentionally broaden the inequality gap in our society. Because often the most vulnerable are also the minority. There are drugs development, you heard, right? There are rare diseases, but no market. Let's don't waste time to develop those solutions. Yeah, so don't always think about for the masses. There must be an in tandem strategy. Today I asked that I know one group that based on evidence is very vulnerable. People with physical disabilities. Have we proportioned efforts directly to them in the context of a warming world? In the same trip when I was in Thailand, before I came back in Khon Kaen, they said, do you want to visit a school in Khon Kaen? 200 young children who were disabled. Very powerful image. You see one or two, you bite your tongue, you see a couple of hundreds, right? You almost fell off your chair. Yeah, so do we have those in our society? Have. They are always the outliers. Yeah, so I ask that we pay attention on this, often in my opinion, overlook. Sorry, I don't have the exact questions we should ask to the vulnerable communities, but since you asked that right in that context, I ask that we put more effort to strengthen community heat resilience and never forget people who are often off the radar because they are the minority.
Thank you, Jason. Can I squeeze in one question? Just now, actually, in all your presentation, you bring in technology, AI, and all that. It's like, how do you find out who is actually suffering or at risk now? So I think, and what Adrian also said, you have this little briefcase that you bring everywhere and all. If I give you a wish list to partner an AI supplier, advisor, consultant, we have in the audience. So what will you wish for that, some AI can help you achieve what you want to do, helping the community who is at risk of heat, and help you to accelerate, because apart from like handheld, and all those, is there any other better and easier solution, AI solution? And I know Prof. Vera also use a lot of AI and all that. So give you a wish list that in the audience there are people who have the expertise. How are you going to sell to them for them to support you?
Maybe I start first. I really have that concept ready to pitch. As much as I candidly say, every question, right, government must fund us to answer what to ask. That is not true. Actually, our ambition is prospectively every question that government has for us or whoever has for us, right? I say I have created the ChatGPT equivalent for heat health. Don't need to fund me 5 million, 3 years, 2 weeks. I can come up with the answer at a very reduced cost. That's my hypothesis, that we need AI layer on the knowledge graph so that every question that somebody asks, I don't have to go through that traditional approach, say, give me some money, give me some time. Because sometimes policy making don't need the perfect answer, but we need the answer quick. So can we now say there must be tons of research done in this field, overseas and locally. Can we put all together and use AI soon with a quantum to address those? If not right now, you ask me a very simple question. If I take 1 cup of ice kacang, how much the body temperature will be reduced, then what is the productivity increase? Sound very simple, right? But right now my answer is, farm me 2 million, 2 years, then I'll come back with the answer.
Okay, Prof. Vera, your wish list.
No, if there's someone in AI, I'm very curious if you could work with us in NUS, because I think one of the biggest challenges that AI has is actually understanding nature and the nuances of nature. It's not able to do it at the moment, actually, honestly, right? We're very clear on that because you need data, and data from nature is very, very dynamic. The permutations and the variabilities are millions in the orders of billions, actually. So regardless of that, there are many different data sets that actually exist with different sensor types that you can do, above ground, below ground. So with the Green Intelligence Network that I'm trying to develop, I would like to work with a relational deep learning model, RDL model, that will allow me to then look at inferences and relationships between the data sets that I can do, but layered in different spatial platforms that allows me to understand data sets, not in 1-2-dimensional, but in multi-dimensional relational models. So if anyone is in the audience who wants to discuss this, I can sit down and have a chat with you.
Great. Adrian, your wish list.
I have a wish list. But I think one of the things that about technology, right, is, and when I grew up also, right, was that I think sometimes knowledge about nature or knowledge about anything tends to be very exclusive. And I don't want technology to drive that away from people. So like, whatever like Manjin is doing in programming, bringing people to the forest, and it was so touching to hear that the girls saying that, one of my favorite parts was actually going at, looking at the plants. So maybe AI can actually help bring, young children out, and, they appreciate nature more and understand it a bit more. I don't want AI to like bring them away from the forest, but more interact with the forest. I think there are so many co-benefits, like what Vera was saying also, And we forget, right, like I'll mention this again because I was in charge of safe distancing in NParks last time. And during that thing, right, during the safe distancing thing, a lot of people went into the forest. And they didn't go to parks, they didn't go to, they went into forest because maybe that's one of the places they could have gone to parks also, they could go to walk around the pavement, but they went into the forest, because that was the only place that gave them a sense of peace. I was like, wow, like how did that happen, and it was very stuck to me. It was very obvious. Everyone's going to the forest. Yeah, I see monkeys carrying bubble tea. Because usually I don't see that, but then, like kids were going to the forest and they're bringing their bubble tea along. And then I see a monkey running with bubble tea, like, wow, I say, like, really, people are really going to the forest now. And there was such a long queue in Bukit Timah, like, so can AI help us appreciate nature more and make us naturalists and understand about the natural world? Yeah.
Well, certainly. First, download the iNaturalist app as well and be, a citizen scientist. Yeah, I only have time for one last question. Whoa, you're very fast. Okay, one last question before we pass all this burning issue to our government CSO to address all those questions. Yeah. Okay, Yvonne. Yeah.
So I'm Yvonne, practicing landscape architect. I am also chairing the Urban Greenery Technical Committee for SGBC. My question is actually to Vera as well as to Adrian. Is there a minimum size for the microforest to thrive? Because this is a more translatable thing. For Greenmark, we have actually pushed for, with CELA and URA, the Institute of Landscape Architects have pushed together with URA to put in native planting as a criteria and minimum more than 50% native species, right? So the thing is that it needs to be very easily translatable into actual projects. Yeah.
I think in the context, because it's a lot to do with scale, right? Even with landscape work, landscape projects for developments, for homes as well. Homes typically don't go for green mark, right? I think they should be allowed to as well, but let's look for the government to figure out, right? Because they're still contributing to the co-benefit for greenery within the whole development of the private houses as well. I think typically, right, if I were to say about 150 to 200 square meters minimally, and then can scale up from there. Because in terms of size, because you have really small patches of greenery, so if you were to look at 100 square meters, 150, 200 square meters, you can easily put in close to about, in a piece of land of that size, probably close to about 40, 50 species, different species, different maturity, and allow the layering to happen as well. I think that's quite appreciative, and it actually will make a big difference. But if it's a larger development, I think you should look at percentages. Because the challenge we have is how do you balance out ornamental and native tree species? So I sit on the master plan for NUS now, right? And I look at the greenery that I have in NUS. I'm on a mission to actually try and de-ornamentalize the whole campus as much as possible, because we realize the campus is expensive to maintain, because you need to come and cut grass, prune the hedges, and do a lot of work. So the moment people were getting used to the fact that, a little bit of randomness and spontaneous greenery, right, was appreciated, and the value propositions, right, people began to accept it. And that's happened during COVID as well for Singapore, right? We started City in Nature, appreciating that the random, spontaneous greenery was not so bad. We're moving away from the manicured landscapes that we were used to as a garden city and became a lot more appreciative of nature, very differently. And I think it's also a mindset. And I think even with the Green Mark, with BCA, I think you're working with a bunch of engineers who look and work on Green Mark. They know domain experts in BCA to actually then look at what the value of that greenery is. Your Green Mark is what, 1-2 points for greenery?
Yeah, so not just for Greenmark, there will be also the NParks Leave program and other programs.
Yeah, so it's still the same, right? I think the value of that in terms of putting enough points on that makes a huge difference. I think the agencies need to actually then relook the appreciation of what this is going to, as I explained, the tangible and intangible assets of the greenery needs to be then realized, and the government needs to support this differently as well. And the agencies need people with professional experience to advise them. You can't have engineers dictating 1 point for greenery. You can't have a bunch of people who actually do not even have domain expertise or even ecological knowledge or understanding the whole ecosystem, deciding this is what we will give 2 marks or 1 mark or 2 marks for the value of greenery that's put out there. And we know the value of the greenery makes significant difference to us. So I think maybe you should push it harder to make sure that it's not 50% native, but push it harder, make sure that the percentage and points I give is a lot more.
Yeah, I think fantastic. Actually, we do have insight into consumer preference also. Actually, in fact, immediately or during COVID, everybody looked for greenery, for physical health and mental health. I'm one of those I didn't feed the monkey, drinks. I just walk only. So, but I think from the development's perspective, residential or commercial, our building users do appreciate greenery more. And I think in order to green Singapore more, it needs multi-agencies efforts. But if there is policy to level the playing field, that every developer has to, meet certain criteria, certain percentage of greening and get more points in the BCA green mark. I think that will accelerate action. And then, of course, if MOE can also educate, work closely with the ground to educate more young people to appreciate nature, I think, we will also accelerate it, and youth as well, of course. And of course, we have financier in the room. We also have AI people. So if everyone see the value of nature and contribute in your own area, your own expertise, I think we can green Singapore much faster. And in fact, from the economic perspective, do you know that actually 50% of global GDP rely heavily or moderately on nature? Yeah, most industry rely on nature, agriculture, farming, fishing, hospitality, F&B, you name it, we have it. So I think with this, and I would like to thank all my professor, advisor, buddies, and we actually really work them very hard, and we have a group chat, we have hundreds of messages over the past few months. So I'm really, really thankful. And with this, I thank you for your patience, and let's listen to our next item, which is our government CSO, Lim Chuan Liang.
Thank you so much to our panelists and to everyone for your insightful questions. Maybe invite the panelists to take a group picture together first in the front. Thank you so much once again to our panelists and our moderator, Ms. Esther. Right, so as our earlier conversation highlighted, turning evidence into impact requires more than just government policy. It requires collective action. And to help us tie all these threads together, we are privileged to invite Singapore's Government Chief Sustainability Officer at the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment, Mr. Lim Chuan Liang, to deliver the closing remarks. Please, a warm welcome for Mr. Lim.
Thanks, Priscilla. Okay, show of hands. How many people learned something today? All right. I certainly benefited from the session, and thank you very much for your sharing. I learned about the value and the techniques in scientific communication, climate communication. Learned about HOT, right? Horizontal, operational, transformative. Learned about regenerative cities, right? And learned about how the temperatures are being actually affected and improved through microforests. I also learned that it's very hard to say no to Esther. And that I don't know about being a queen bee, but she's certainly a tiger, if you're judging by 2 months being able to get that project going. Right, and I think that's testimony to her commitment and her team's sense of purpose to the climate and environment, and that's something that is very, very dear to us at the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment. We live in a world of rising temperatures, unfortunately. I personally, for example, Jason spoke about 37 degrees. I spent about a year in Arizona, hottest part of US, ex-military. I had to live through a lifestyle where I had to run from aircon to aircon. And when I get into the car, you turn on the engine, you don't touch, because the steering wheel is just too hot to even touch. And you spend about 5 minutes just waiting for the steering wheel to cool down. All right, that is the kind of potential life or the environment that we may have to operate in. And I think that it is the government's intent to be able to not just think about government processes, procedures, regulations, and whatnot, but importantly to be able to then think about how we as an entire society must come together to be able to address this challenge. 37 degrees was something that you say maybe one day we're going to hit that, but actually we've already hit that. In 2023, Ang registered 37 degrees, the hottest ever temperature recorded in Singapore. All right, 2023. Now in 2023, 24, 25, were the 3 warmest years that were recorded in human history. This year we spoke about El Nino, and the scientists are actually increasingly watching with increasing probability that there could be a super El Nino, which would mean that in 2027, we could see the hottest temperature ever. So I think these are real changes and shifts in our climate that we need to be able to address. And it is also for this reason that the ministry, our minister, in the recent Committee of Supply debate, highlighted that 2026 will be the year of climate adaptation, to be able to then bring to the fore the thinking, the discussions across governments, across companies, across our communities, about the importance of being able to think about and being able to be prepared for rising sea levels, rising temperatures, increasing probabilities of extreme heat and extreme rainfall, for example. And this is something that we must all prepare at all levels. What a government is able to look at the, say for example, coastal protection from a sea level rise perspective. In some ways that is a physical and an engineering challenge. But heat is not just a physical challenge, it's a physiological challenge, and the challenge is that it affects different people differently and at different times. And so that is the importance of the awareness that we need to have as a community. The other is, of course, for businesses. It's not just about a local issue. The temperature extremes, the weather extremes is going to affect supply chains. So businesses will need to have to think about the risks and the resilience of not just what is happening in Singapore, but actually across the region and even across the world. So I think those are important things, and that's the reason why 2026 will be the year of climate adaptation. Now, we just went through a reading on the Coastal Protection Bill. This year, we're also raising awareness in terms of the issues that we talked about today, about heat. And we're starting a heat resilience policy office to be able to put some dedicated attention. We will be engaging the communities to highlight these issues and having a lot of conversations. And in the end, we want to be able to deliver comprehensively a national adaptation plan where it takes in a lot of the feedback, the input, the perspectives of everyone across the table, across our society. I think that's something that's important. Of course, to support that, and that was something that Jason had highlighted, mentioned, hinted several times, yes, we will have a research program that looks at heat. We're setting aside about $40 million, right, for researchers to be able to then bring the level of knowledge, scientific knowledge, to elevate it to a point where we, from a policymaker perspective, can really begin to dissect, understand, and implement targeted policies. I think that's something that is good news for the research community, but importantly, it's good news for us because we're taking this a lot more seriously. What about the community then? For the community, we have activated a climate adaptation package founded on what we've been doing with the SG Eco Fund. So we're setting aside $5 million, right, to support community initiatives under this climate adaptation package to allow and encourage community initiatives to look at addressing climate adaptation issues, heat, food supply resilience, water savings, and so on and so forth. Earlier, I think that Esther kind of hinted, right? In terms of actually SG Eco Fund, SG Eco Fund is supporting the effort in actually expanding the microforest here in CDL and the other sites as well. And it's something that is not just from a CDL perspective. We hope that through this, we are actually activating the rest of the community to really also think about climate adaptation and to put forth ideas about how you can look at it from your local perspective to see what the kind of contributions you can make, to see whether you need to activate the communities to understand and say, how do you then think about reaching out to your neighbors? Are there ways and efforts that you'll be able to activate, redesign, such that you have a system, if you like, right, of actually informing, monitoring, and looking at people who are vulnerable. These are just examples, plenty of other examples here. Last but not least, I think I'd like to leave you with this, while we're on the topic of microforest. I thought that actually the SSA has been a microforest. A microforest where all of us are the butterflies, the birds, the bees, the earthworms maybe even, right, have come together. And as Vera has said, we came together because the features of microforests are spontaneous, random, and very diverse. And I think these are the features that allows us, I think, to come together to really innovate, trade ideas, trade resources, trade networks, and in doing so strengthen our society and in terms of in the face of climate change. And I think that it is, with that, I'd like to thank CDL and the team for putting this together. I think it's very, very exciting. It's a start of many things to come. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you once again for the CLT.
Thank you, GCSO. May we invite you to stay on stage? Can I invite the rest of the speakers up for a group picture together with Esther? Okay, while the group picture is happening, after this, we're going to take a group picture with the rest of you. So can I get everybody who's in this part of the classroom to just move over here? Can I get everybody here? You can maybe move your chairs closer to each other so that we can take a group picture together. Okay, let's move.